Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. YouTube, how are you, YouTube? I am joined by our esteemed guest, Sister Naima B. Robert. This is not the first time her being here with us. Jazakallah khair. Sister Naima, how are you, Sister Naima?
Alhamdulillah, all good. Jazakallah khair for having me.
No, pleasure, absolute pleasure. I'm very much looking forward to this discussion, inshallah. Before we go into our discussion, inshallah, can you give the people a quick elevator pitch as to who you are and what you do? You're not just a random nobody. You're actually, mashallah, yani somebody who's accomplished quite a lot in her lifetime. So if you could just let the audience know for those who may not know you. And if you don't know Sister Naima, you've been living under a rock. Bismillah.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Naima B. Robert. I'm an award-winning author, editor of Sisters Magazine for 10 years. And at the moment, I am writing and teaching others to write. Alhamdulillah, I've been in this space for about 20 years, author of From My Sister's Lips and about 30 other books. So alhamdulillah, it's good to be here.
30 books, yeah? I've written one book, just one. Yeah, it's not on this area. It's to do with marketing. And that was a bloody nightmare. Yeah, it scarred me how much work was involved in writing that book. How does one go about writing 30 books?
Well, quick disclaimer, they're not 30 adult books, firstly. There are a lot of children's books in there, about 25 of them. No, that's incorrect. About 20 of them are for children, so they're picture books, only 1,000 words. It's not too bad, not too much. But yeah, I mean, writing a book can take a lot out of you. So yeah, kudos to you for actually starting the project and finishing, because I think about 93% of people don't ever finish when they start. So alhamdulillah, you've done more than a lot of people. Yeah.
I don't bloody blame them. And let me tell you, I'm just going to be very candid with the audience now. This book, I must have spent in total maybe close to 1,000 hours writing it, editing it, again and again and again. I don't know how many times I edited that damn book. And then, do you know how many copies I sold, Sister Naima?
How many?
6.
No.
Yeah,
that is a shocking ROI. That's terrible. Right? You didn't have the right writing coach. You see, this is the problem. Problem.
Well, that's a great segue into, you might as well give your elevator pitch on that. You're a writing coach, am I mistaken?
I do. Alhamdulillah, I get to help mostly women. I have some male clients, but mostly women in my programs, whether they're writing a memoir or they're writing a self-development type of book. I help them to write that book in 90 days and publish it and promote it. That's one of the most key elements, because most people writing a book, they can figure it out, but the science and the art behind actually selling copies, as you know, is not what it says on the tin. So it's Indeed. A pleasure for me to be able to share like my 20 years of experience with people. Alhamdulillah. May I just say, I've set myself a big, beautiful goal of helping 200 people, men, women, Muslim, non-Muslim, whoever, to publish by the end of December, by December 2022. Ooh. So 200, inshallah. So we've made some headway. We've got, mashallah, quite a few authors who've published with us and through us with our help. But I am aiming to go much bigger and much better for next year, bi'idhnillah. So
wow. Is that December 2021 or December 2022?
No, 2022, Yani.
2022. Okay, fine. Yeah. Wow, Allahumma barak. That's something. And you mentioned something important there. It's not just about the writing of the book. It's about taking care of the sales side, the marketing side. And this is something I totally just overlooked entirely, which was quite ignorant, really. But actually, you should start with the end in mind. You see, with anything.
Exactly.
And writing a book is no different. So I'm glad I did it, actually, because I got the experience of knowing what not to do. I guess it was a very time-consuming experience, but nevertheless an experience. So, guys, if you're thinking of writing a book, please understand the dynamics of how you're going to sell it before you write a single word. And this is so
100%.
important.
I co-sign this.
Right. Khair, inshallah. So, Sister Naima, I know you said to me on backstage or when we had our chat last week that you're aware of my position on polygyny, and you think that we are going to clash or disagree in some areas. So please, let's start off with the fundamentals then. Obviously, the purpose of this discussion today is not, is polygyny acceptable or not acceptable, halal or not halal. We know, we understand polygyny is permissible and acceptable in our deen. The purpose of this discussion is more on the practicalities of its execution. Sounded quite good, actually. Sounded all right, didn't it? Practicality.
Put that down for the next book.
So you are heavily entrenched in the sisters community, and I am quite entrenched in the brothers community, alhamdulillah. What have you found? What common problems have you seen? Common themes, common occurrences that make polygyny problematic in its execution in the 21st century, from your experience?
So the premise is that polygyny is problematic in its execution in the 21st century. This is the premise.
I don't know. Is it? What do you think?
Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. I would like to start off by saying that I know examples of polygyny done well, and I know examples of when polygyny hasn't worked. The stories of failure dominate our cultural landscape.
Mm-hmm.
That's what everyone talks about. That's what everyone thinks of. It's become connected to polygyny. Yeah. So polygyny equals problems. First wife's not happy. Second wife's not happy. The children are abused and scarred. You know, man's not responsible, can't afford it. Children on the dole, women on the dole. All of these things is what we think of right away when we think of polygyny, especially in the West, right? So the first thing I wish we had data. I really wish we had data, because what we have at the moment is hearsay. We have anecdotal evidence and we have hearsay. And what I've discovered in our community, unfortunately, is that the horror stories, maybe like all human societies, the horror stories get the headlines, right?
For sure.
So in cases where polygyny has gone well, you see a man who's on his purpose, who's quite serious about having families and being responsible for families. Now, does he always carry the full financial load? No, but he's committed to the family. So he's building his family with one wife here and another wife there and all his children. Where you see polygyny, and you know, and there is, I would say, a synergy between the parties involved, right? Everyone is more or less committed to the unit, to the family, right? And even if the wives may live together, they may live apart, they may never meet each other. You know what I'm saying? Like, they may meet every weekend, they may only see each other on Eid, but they are committed to the unit of the family. So in that case, mashallah, they have longevity and they work. When you see polygyny not working, unfortunately, is when something other than commitment to building was the reason for the polygyny, right? So, you know, subhanAllah, people do avail themselves of this for a lot of different reasons. I get it. But when you go into polygyny to fill a gap, the likelihood of that lasting is quite low, right? You know what I mean by fill a gap?
No, I don't. Tell me. Let's be specific here.
So, for example, I know of a situation a sister messaged me about where a man was looking on a website for a second wife because his wife hadn't been intimate with him for 16 months and she was ill. So he's like, yo, I can't deal with this. I need to get married again. So really, when a man marries again to solve a sexual issue, I see that as being a bit on shaky ground, because as we know, it's not just about that. You're going to take on a woman, take on the responsibility, the relationship, the finances, etc. Often the man finds that, you know what, this is not what I signed up for. I'm out, you know, and then she's divorced, and then the whole story goes, and he used me and he married me and then he left me and da. So I found that often the intentions of the man going in, whether it's to fill a need, to fill a void, to fill a gap, or to build something, will make the difference between how committed the parties are to the process. Because at the end of the day, if you went in there for your desires and she wasn't all that, what's going to make you stay? You're not in the business of building extra families and taking on extra responsibility. You went there to get your needs met. If your needs were not met, you're bouncing, right? This is, I think, the mentality. So,
all right, I want to address a couple of issues here, because you've mentioned a couple of important points.
Okay.
First of all, I'm going to be perfectly candid with you, Sister Naim, and I've made this clear on my YouTube videos in the past as well. There are occasions when men do get married again to solve a problem. He has a problem and he wants it solved.
Yes, I am
not a fan of a man marrying again when he has a problem. with his wife. However, sometimes that problem is out of his control. Maybe his wife, I don't know, she can't keep up with him desire-wise, or sometimes even like it's an emotional thing. For example, he's Pakistani, she's Pakistani, or he's Algerian and she's Algerian, but they were raised in two totally different countries. One of them was raised in Algeria, one of them was raised in the UK. They share the same ethnicity, but they don't share the same culture, and they can't connect. Heard this number of times amongst the brothers. So it's not always sexual. It's like, I just want to like be able to have banter, like have a relationship with my wife, and I don't have that with my wife, but she has my children and I love her and I don't want to let her go and then marry again. So I am not a fan of men marrying again when they have a problem. However, sometimes the problem is insurmountable, it would appear. Wallahu a'lam. Tamam?
Yeah.
However, with that disclaimer aside, I will say this, Sister Naima. Unless a man, okay, everyone knows I want to have 20 kids, inshallah ta'ala. If Allah has written that for me, unless a man wants to have more children to the extent that his first wife is unable to give him that many, and therefore he wants to take on another wife to have that much more children, or that many more children, I should say, there is no other reason, or I should say there is no primary motivating factor for a man to want to take on another wife except to fulfill his sexual desire. That is the overriding, overwhelming urge. Because let me tell you something, as you already know, the responsibility, as you mentioned, in taking on another family is huge. It is huge. I'll take it one step further. And, you know, this might make you feel a bit uncomfortable, Sister Naima, but I'm going to say it anyway, because we need to have a candid discussion about this. If I was content with the number of children that I had and I didn't want to have any more children, and we lived in a time where there were concubines, I would not, let me make this very clear, I would not take on a second, third, or fourth wife. I would have concubines.
100%. I'm with you on that. 100%.
Wow. Okay.
Can I just jump in on that? Because
sure,
I've thought about this. My friends know. I always say to them, if I was a guy, it's side chicks all the way. Sorry to say, Malish. But no, because people think that polygyny is like having a harem, right? Where you've basically got these women who are just available to you, always beautiful, always loving, always available, you know, for your enjoyment and your pleasure. And you know, in the case of like having a side chick or a small house or whatever, like, or concubine, you know, you go, you fulfill your need and you leave. Like there is nothing more holding you there. Whereas when I think, if I was a man, and again, people said to me, you're not a man. So I said, that's true, I'm not a man. But if I was a man and my reasoning for having another woman was to fulfill my desires, the last thing I would do is sign up for another marriage, to have a proper wife and look after her emotionally, physically, financially, you know, all of these things, right? Give her her haqq, which is what? To see her the equal amount of time that I see my other one, to visit her. It's not even up to me. I can't even choose. I can't even call and say, yo, I'm outside, let me in, I'm coming over. I can't even do that. I have to give her her nights, and I have to give her her nights, no matter what I want. Not only that, if she wants to have children, that's her haqq, right? I can't say, look, I've already got 4 over there. Can we have a house with no kids, please? Yeah, because it's better for my headspace. She's just going to look at you like you're crazy, because that's her haqq too. Because in her eye, I'm a wife. I want to be a wife and a mother and be looked after and protected and provided for, just like number one. So yeah, I completely understand. If I was a man, I would not sign up for 1, 2, 3, 4 households. I think it takes a very strong, responsible man to actually sign up for that and say, yes, that's me. I'm the one who's looking after those women. Those are my women. Those are my children. And I'm doing this. We're on the same page.
So, Tamam, with that being the case, and Sister Naima, what's the problem with a man wanting to marry again primarily just to fulfill his sexual desire? He's prepared to take on the rest, but the overwhelming motive is the sexual desire.
I think maybe you misconstrued what I said. My point was about longevity and stability of the family unit.
Right.
And what I've found, and you asked me what I've seen, what I've found is that if desire is the primary motivator, those relationships don't tend to last as long, because the fulfillment of desire, at the end of the day, firstly, it's a toss of the coin. Could be great, could not. the point of entering into a relationship with this woman is you're hoping that it's going to be an upgrade, right? You're hoping that it's going to be an upgrade to your life as a whole, that it's going to add to your life and you're going to have this other outlet.
Sure.
If that woman comes with her own set of issues, human issues,
Yeah.
her own set of problems, right? She gets pregnant right away, for example. I'm not going to say pregnancy is a problem, but I think you know what I mean, right?
Oh, yeah.
She gets pregnant right away. She has a difficult pregnancy. She's not available to you. Now there's a baby there and she's tired. Those relationships tend to become a strain on the man because, like I said, he didn't sign up for that. His reasoning was, this is going to be an outlet for me, but instead of an outlet, it's actually now a burden on me, and I'm not getting what I needed when I signed up for it. You see what I mean? So those relationships are the ones that tend to just not last as long, you know, because, you know, after, like I said, for him, he's now torn, and I get it. I remember speaking with, you know, people who said, you know, nobody ever really talks about how difficult polygyny is for men. Of course, nobody wants to hear that. Because it's like, well, you chose that. Who do you think wants to hear your sob story? Nobody. But the reality is, if you have wife number one, maybe she's gone through her own emotional process, you know, accepting this. And, you know, you're home with her, you're in the original home, maybe she just had a baby, you know, she needs you. But it's the other wife's night. And you know you have to go. And you have to leave this one who you want to stay with, right? You want to stay with her because you love her and you care for her and you don't want to see her in pain. But you understand and you realize, haram yani, the other one, she has a haqq and I have to go to her. Even to the extent you go to wife number two or number three's house and it doesn't feel as good as wife number one's house because it's a newer house, there's a different dynamic there, whatever the case may be. Point is, it's not what it's cracked up to be. And I don't think people realize that. So if you're not committed, those relationships are going to break.
Yeah.
Because it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah. I see. And this is, you see, this commitment here, the commitment responsibility. This is what makes, and for those who are watching, they might think I'm talking from a hypothetical standpoint. No, I've been in polygyny. I had 3 wives at one point. I was in polygyny for close to 5 years, you could say. And for 2 of those years, I had 3 wives at the same time. So I do speak from personal experience, although my personal anecdotal experience cannot be taken as the rule. However, I have an idea of what it's really like, and having spoken to other brothers as well, there seems to be common themes and similarities. And one of those themes is that the responsibility and the stress of juggling multiple emotions, or women's hearts, if you like, at the same time is not easy. It is very, very hard. It is the reason that I have advised, again, this is nothing to do with the deen or the sharia, but I have mentioned to the brothers that I don't really recommend a brother to seriously entertain the idea of polygyny until after the age of 35, at least. Why? Because there's an element of mental and emotional maturity that, I mean, first of all, women want a man who's more mature than herself when it's just him and her together. Now, you multiply that equation by 2, 3, or 4. You know, if we want to be mathematical about it, you're going to need to have twice or thrice or 4 times the amount of emotional maturity and intellect to handle it. And it's bloody hard. It is hard. And I can't emphasize that point enough. And for the brothers who entertain romantic notions of polygyny and have never experienced it before, let me just crush that for you right now. It is hard. Now, this brings us to another discussion point, Sister Naima, which is that there are, in fact, I had a sister message me this morning. She's actually complaining to me. I'm struggling to be, I want to be a second wife. I can read it to you later on. I will get to that afterwards. But there are quite a few sisters out there who don't mind being second wives, but the brothers who are willing to take them on are not necessarily able to provide in the way that she wants him to be able to provide. Maybe she wants him to take on all of her fiscal responsibilities, or at least the greater majority of her fiscal responsibilities, and he's simply not capable of doing so. What's the solution here in your view? What do we do? Because on the one hand, we tell men you should be responsible and so on. But then on the other hand, if we are to be realistic about it, most men are struggling to provide for one household.
Yes,
never mind another one.
Yeah. No, I think we know that for the majority, not everyone, but majority of, Muslim men in the West, full polygyny is a stretch. Let's put it that way. Especially if, things like you're renting or even buying a house, children in Islamic school. Come on, like we know how hard it is in the UK and probably elsewhere as well. But I'd like to share, a sister messaged me about this exact issue. Now, this sister is in her late 30s.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't have children. She wants to have children, right? So she's realizes that she has a job. She's working. She's financially independent, but she doesn't want to work. She wants to be a wife and mum, So, anyway, she's speaking to a brother. This is the same one actually who wanted to get married again, because eventually it emerged that the reason he wanted a second wife was that his first wife is incapacitated at this moment and has been for many, many months. So he said to her, look, I can't provide for you, but I'm happy to marry you, but I can't provide for you. And, you can waive that right. Okay. You can waive, like, if you want this to work, you already have money, you have a place to stay, just you can basically just give up your right. And she was very upset, and actually she was offended by it. And what I said to her was, look, at the end of the day, what he's saying is true. You can waive your right. Fine. But the deal that he's offering, what's on the table right now, doesn't fit with what you are looking for, because he wants to keep you as a secret second wife, not introduce you to the first wife, not introduce you to his family, and basically just enjoy private time with you at pretty little cost to himself. Okay. Whereas you want to have children, and you want a family man, right? And you don't want your children to be like not knowing who their father's family are, etc., right? So even if the financial piece can be worked out, what he has to give is not what you need. So keep it moving, right? But realize that financially, this is always going to come up. And if you want this man and you believe that he has enough to offer you, outside of fully looking after you financially, if you believe that everything else checks out and he has enough to offer you, you may need to cut a deal, mainly because of kind of the situation that you're in, what it is you want, that it would be harder to get that. That's the advice that I give people is, what is, we talk about this all the time. What is he bringing to the table? A man doesn't only bring money to the table. That's not the only thing he has to offer. But is the rest of what he has to offer enough to outweigh this shortfall? I know how you feel about this, but some people may not be familiar with your take on it. So,
I mean, look, I really have
he's
to use
not
my
having
words.
it. Mahdi's not having it at all. He's
All
like,
right, first of
whatever.
all, I have a few questions with regards to the sister. Has she been married before?
No.
Okay, so what has caused her to have left it so long that it's gotten to her late 30s and now she wants to get married? Perhaps she's considered beforehand. You can't tell me. I cannot believe that no man has proposed to her in her younger years. I mean, this is borderline impossible for me to believe.
I don't know. She didn't say.
Look, this is a tough one because sisters in particular, I was dealing with one of these sisters the other day. Sisters who find themselves in their mid to late 30s and they are still chaste, they are still untouched, they're still virgin, and they've never been married before. Obviously, they don't have children. They still, what's the word I'm looking for? They still have the same hopes and dreams of a young girl. She's still a young girl in her mind, right? She wants to have a family. She wants to have her husband and her children, and her two daughters and a son, or whatever the case may be, in their nice 3-bedroom semi-detached home. That dream doesn't go. And really, my heart goes out to those women who have reached that late stage and find themselves in a situation where they are struggling to marry on the one hand, but on the other hand, she still wants to have that dream. What I would say to those sisters is this: you have two choices. You have the choice of continuing to romanticize this idea and potentially staying single forever for God knows how long, or you find yourself a brother that you can marry into, a decent, respectable brother, and have that family, albeit at a, for want of a better word, at a cost, exactly, because it comes to a point where it's that or nothing, and which is better. And you see, one of the fallacies of human nature is that the less likely something is to happen, the more we bank on it happening. So as the irony is, as she actually gets older and the door starts to close more and more, that hope, she will grow larger and larger. This has actually been proven in research. There's a book by Dan Ariely called Predictably Irrational. The less likely something is to happen, the more we bank on it happening. It's a quirk of human nature. Hence why we have millions of people playing the lottery, Naima. Everyone knows they're not going to win the lottery, and yet everyone plays the lottery. You see?
Yeah.
So what would you say to a sister like that? Because, I mean, I don't like this idea of secret wife, but my mind, you could say, having spoken to different brothers over the past few weeks.
Brothers know. The brothers know it's sometimes the lesser of two evils, right? And I get it, right? I get it. I have my own ideas as to why that situation is a bit controversial.
I mean, let's just put it on the table. The bottom line is this: a man will keep a second wife as a secret wife because he's scared that the first wife is going to run off with his kids.
Exactly. So this is the thing. This is the controversial piece, right? I had a very good friend, a good friend who was looking into Islam, and we watched one of the talk shows, a Muslim talk show, talking about polygyny, and the conversation was about the trauma that the first wife goes through, right? That's really what it was about. It wasn't polygyny as a whole. It was looking at the first wife's trauma. And, this friend of mine was looking into Islam, and they were confused because they were like, hold on, isn't polygyny part of your religion? Like, isn't that something that is known? Muslims have 4 wives. They can have 4 wives. I was like, yeah. And they were like, so then why would any Muslim woman marry a Muslim man and expect to be the only one? Where does that come from? Because I think that rationally and deen-wise, the reason why, as you said, the reason why brothers are having to do all these shenanigans with secret wives, etc., is because they know that if they come to their first wife with that situation, it's going to be basically a crap show. Okay, it's going to just blow up in their faces. Whether she's going to have a meltdown, whether she's going to run off with the kids, whether she's going to threaten divorce and break up the family, whatever. But it's her reaction that forces him into that corner. Now, my advice to sisters would be, right, sisters, firstly, do we believe that polygamy is a good thing when it's done well? Do we believe that polygyny is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given allowances for and has, and some scholars say that it's the norm. Some scholars say it's not even an allowance. That's the norm. 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, that's the norm. And monogamy is abnormal. And we know from human society that polygamy, when it comes to traditional society, polygamy ticks all the boxes. More wives, more children, more wealth, more lineage, more legacy. That's the traditional paradigm when it comes to marriage, right? That's why polygyny is everywhere you go, right? Anyway, I digress. If sisters like myself, like my sister here, like my sister there, and my sister over there, if we were able to change the way that we think of polygyny and the way that we feel about it, and actually embrace this as something that could be beneficial. And I say could be beneficial, but I can't even believe that I'm saying could be beneficial, right? Because if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that this is something that is part of the deen, that there is barakah in it, then why don't we believe it? Why do we see this as something that is destructive in its nature? Because our cultural conditioning, even within the Muslim community, polygamy destroys lives. Polygamy destroys families. Polygamy, aslan, is a bad thing. It's allowed in the deen, but I don't want it. I don't want it, and I don't know anyone else who wants it. It's nafsi, yani. Our response to it is 100% nafsi. It's nafsi, and it's malish, forgive my language. It is selfish, and it's okay. We're human beings, right? We all have selfish impulses. But the reason why our society takes the first wife's side all the time is because most of us are in monogamous relationships. So we are the first wife. We're protecting our interests. We're protecting our interests. We're protecting the interests of our children, right? We do not want a community in which polygyny is allowed openly, is embraced, where it's made easy for more sisters to have a husband. We don't want that because that threatens our interests. First wives. Do you see what I'm saying? And that's something that we have to face as sisters. That's something that we have to do, because trust me when I say, if sisters in general took away the angst from a conversation, even just a conversation about polygyny, brothers wouldn't be trying to get married secretly because they wouldn't have fear. They wouldn't think, if I do this, I'm automatically destroying what I've built. They wouldn't believe that because you never told them that. You know what I mean?
I mean, look, I will say this, and again, this is purely anecdotal, but in my experience of dealing with women, is that I really do believe some women are better built for polygyny than others. Some of them, some women have lower levels of jealousy than others. And listen, if we want to talk about jealousy, the wives of the Prophet ﷺ were jealous. Aisha radiallahu anha threw that plate over onto the floor out of jealousy, and the Prophet ﷺ didn't even chastise her for it. He didn't even chastise her for it.
Yeah.
So, but with that being said, I have witnessed it. Some women have higher levels of jealousy than others. Some of them are more capable of dealing with it in a good way than others. Some of them deal with it in a destructive way. But you see, going back to my original point, Naima, which is, okay, the top 10%
okay,
of men...
so you asked me, sorry, I didn't even answer your question. I apologize.
No worries.
With regards to that sister, right? Because I didn't get to answer your question. What I would say is that for her, this particular brother was not suitable because, as I said, I think secret marriage, we can understand why it happens. For some women, that is an acceptable deal. For example, if she also simply wants adult company, she also just wants somebody who's going to check in on her, somebody to pass the time with. She maybe has children of her own, you know, she's got like her own life is busy and everything. And she would like to have another adult in her life, and she would like to have the pleasure of his company. That might work for her. She's not in it to be connecting families and doing all of this stuff. And she might say, yeah, that's cool for me. I've already got my house. I've got my bills paid. I don't need any of that. But I like you and we can work this out. But for that sister, it didn't fit the bill. Because if you are, you know what I mean? Like if you're going to be a secret wife and then you have kids, but people in the community don't know you're married, and like there you are turning up with children, his family don't know you. It's a mess, really.
See, this is really tough because I don't like this secret wife business. You know, you already know my mentality. It's just the Naima when it comes to dealing with women. I keep my foot on the throat, and this is the best way I've found dealing with them for the most part. Now, alhamdulillah, my wife, mashallah, she's very reasonable for the most part, but every now and again I have to put the foot on the throat. It is what it is. And I know you're watching. I'm going to say her name. I know you're watching. She's laughing right now. For that sister that you mentioned, I would not recommend her to get into a secret marriage. And I'll tell you why.
No.
Because she has never been married before and because she doesn't have children. Okay?
Yeah,
and let me preface that by saying that I don't like secret marriage in the first place because that's not how I roll with my women. Yeah, I let them know what the time is. If you don't like it, the door is wide open. Okay? But I do know some brothers are in really... The woman has the upper hand, particularly here in the West with his children. That's when she gets in with his kids, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about now a brother who wants to marry again to a second wife for whatever reason, whatever the case may be. He's not in a position to be able to financially provide in any meaningful manner, which is the bulk of brothers, okay, to a second wife. Yeah. And he comes across a sister who maybe she's been married once, twice, thrice, 4 times, 5 times, I don't know. And she's had her kids and she's tried the whole fairy tale thing and it didn't work for her. And she agrees and she says to him, you know what? It's absolutely fine. I'm panning up my bills and all the rest of it. So long as you can take care of the plumbing every now and again, I'm fine with that arrangement. What do you think about this?
If the woman is self-aware and is being honest, it can work.
Have you seen this? Have you seen this work in your? You have seen this work.
Okay. Yes, I've seen it work. Come on. If she's self-aware and she's being honest and she has that maturity, it can work. However, if she's not self-aware, if she thinks she's okay with it, but she's not, if she's telling him she's okay with it just to seal the deal, but inside really she's hoping that things will change, that's the part that's the thing, right? That hope that one day things are going to get better, things are going to, that she, whether it's a secret or she said, oh, I don't mind just one day a week, or I'll see you a couple of times a month, or whatever she agrees to, right? In the whole Miss Yara situation, she has to mean that. Not only does she have to mean it, she has to really examine herself and say, if this situation never changes, he never builds up his money, He's never able to see me more than however many times I'm agreeing to. Can I be happy with that? And answer that question honestly. Because if you can't, and if you're like inside, you're hoping that things will get better and change, you're hoping for a different outcome, it's better you don't do it. Because it's unfair now on the brother later on when you're sulky and you're moody and you're upset and you're throwing tantrums because, well, it's not fair. At the end of the day, I've got the same rights as her. Like, you know, you're having those conversations. The two of you did not sign up for that. You did not, that was not agreement. So sis, if you're considering something like this, only agree to it if in your heart of hearts you know that, alhamdulillah, I'm content with this. Exactly what he has to offer me right now, this is as much as I can, I am content with this. If he says, I don't have kids or any of these things, don't ever agree to anything unless you've done that work to say, you know what, as far as I know, in my heart, I am happy with this. I'm grateful even for this. You know, Mahdi, this word grateful, right? We've talked about it a lot, and I actually heard Muhammad Hijab was doing a reaction to the sister's video on Honest Tea Talk, and the issue of being grateful came up. Yeah, that, you know, why should a woman feel grateful that she's divorcee? Why should she feel grateful that someone will marry her, right? And I was thinking about this, and I was thinking, it's so funny. Within the popular culture, gratitude is a huge thing. It's a buzzword, right? And so many of us employ gratitude to help us to get, you know, to just get on with life, right? But try telling a woman, a sister even, that you should be grateful that that man committed to you. Oh no, you've insulted her, you've demeaned her, you've humiliated her. Like, what are you trying to say? You know, we give it a completely different meaning now when it's about a woman being grateful to a man.
Wow.
And the thing is that if that man that you're cutting a deal with, if he has something that you need, and you know he's happy to give it to you, and he says, let's get married, you know, this is what I have, is this enough for you, right? You didn't have anything before. There was nothing before. This is the offer on the table. If that's what you need, how about pray your istikhara and accept it gratefully and continue to be grateful. Of course he should be grateful to you as well, but right now I'm talking straight to the sisters, right? Be grateful for what he has to offer you. You agreed. You said, yes, this is enough for me. So continue being grateful. Yani, human beings, subhanAllah, we're tough, you know, we're tough customers. But that's what I would say. That's what I would say. Very long answer to a short question.
See, you can hear me breathing heavily and sighing heavily because
I know you don't believe in that.
It's not that I don't believe in it, it's that I believe it has its place, but I don't like it. But just because I don't like it doesn't mean that it's not right. You see? Let me just grab this super
Or
chat.
that it doesn't solve a problem for some people.
Hey, barakallah fiqh. Or that it doesn't solve a problem, as you said. Give jazakallah khair for the £5 super chat. Sister Naima, can you source me a good wife? Are you a matchmaker? Jazakallah khair for a great discussion. Sister Naima, you want to take that one away?
I'm not a matchmaker. Sorry, I'm not a matchmaker, but there are too many good sisters out there, mashallah, too many good brothers. It's so funny on my videos, those you know, the controversial videos, the ones that you responded to. It's so shocking to me the difference between how brothers respond to things and how sisters respond, because sisters are saying there are no good brothers out there. And brothers are saying, please, please, I just want a wife. Will you marry me? Here's my WhatsApp. You know, I had an email from someone saying, I'm looking for a good wife. Will you marry me? So people don't know you at all. But these are brothers who are like, these are men who are miskeen. Like, please, just someone, any good girl, you know? I don't know what's happening.
And this is a really, in fact, you know, if you, by the way, guys, if you're finding this beneficial, valuable, this podcast right now, go do me a favor and hit the like, and don't be a hater and hit the dislike, and then take the link, copy it, share it onto your socials, share it onto your Facebook, share it on your WhatsApp group, share it. Let the people benefit from this conversation. I want to touch on that for a moment, Sister Naima, because you mentioned, I have found that men are more desirous of women than women are of men. Okay, because men want women more, in speaking in broad terms, than women want men, primarily because of their physical desire. Yeah, that's the primary motivating force. This puts us in a strange situation. And I mentioned this yesterday, Shukran Akhi Muhammad Khalifa. I mentioned this yesterday to Brother Daniel Haqiqaju, which is he who was willing to commit suicide has the initiative. And quite literally, a lot of women, and I don't want to say the majority, but a lot of women today would rather die single than settle. In her mind, settle, right? And it comes down to the perception, because she perceives it as settling, and that's all that
Yeah.
matters, frankly. She might not be settling, but she perceives it to be settling.
I
And
hate
so,
that word.
right. And so, because of that, he who
Mm.
is willing to commit suicide has the initiative. She's willing to commit marriage suicide,
Right.
meaning
Right.
stay
That's
single,
true.
right?
Yep. It's true.
Which means that they have the initiative. And then we have all of these men who are saying, look, I just want to flipping get married, for crying out loud,
Yeah.
and keep myself in halala. But we have a lot of women who would, like I said, rather stay single than get themselves into these situations. So when it comes to polygyny specifically, do you feel that polygyny is something that a sister should really take seriously if the brother is offering her very little? He's saying to her, maybe I can't give you anything financially. And the reason why I'm talking about the bulk of men would not be able
Yeah.
to provide for a second household. Okay.
Mm.
He says to her, I'm not going to be able to provide you with anything financially. And nights, whenever I can get off, whenever I can. Should a woman take this seriously? Is this really a serious offer?
I don't think it's a very respectful offer. Respectfully.
Tell me why you say that.
I think a woman would really need to believe that her options have run out.
Women don't believe that, though. Well, generally speaking, women don't.
No. You say that, but I remember Brother Muawiyah Tucker. We had a podcast conversation. He was saying that when they ran a marriage event, they had lots of different people there. MashaAllah. One sister came. She was 48, never been married. She came and she said to him, "Please just find me someone." And he said, "Age, ethnicity, background." She said, I don't care. Anyone. And he said they literally tried for like 10 minutes to try and get her to narrow it down. She said, I do not care. Anyone, as long as he's okay. Like, he's sane and he wants to marry me. Like, let's go. So I think that there are women who, they'll get to a stage where it's like, but regardless of whether she really is or isn't, she have to believe she's out of options. Or she just wants a toy boy today. And she's, it's a casual thing. Again, as I said, the longevity, it's okay. I mean, if it's only meant to be a 6-month thing or a year thing or 2 years, 3 years, and you're cool with that, then it's better than going into haram. But
right. And that's the bottom line.
You know what I'm saying? It's better than going into haram at the end of the day. But, I think that, again, this is the thing. This most stable unit, as we've said before, the husband provides, the woman supports, and they have children together.
Right.
That's the most stable family unit. It's how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala designed the asl of it, right? And it's what's worked for centuries. So the stability-wise, man, woman, and their children. I remember someone saying to me, you need to add something in there. I said, what was that? He said, you need to add that the door is open for other families. I said, okay, I don't know about that because that could rock the boat a bit, but still, reality is stability, husband, wife, their children. Everything else, there's risk factors. Step parenting, stepfather, stepmother, blended families, adopted children, fostering children, second wives, all these other things, they're all risk factors. Similarly, with a marriage that you're really not sure whether you can, do it for the long haul, it's a risk factor. Whether you can keep her happy for the long haul, but you could do it anyway, it's a risk factor. You take the risk. But you're saying better take the risk than die alone and never having risked anything.
What I'm saying is this: better to do it in halal than haram. That's 100%. What I'm saying.
Okay,
right?
100%.
Before we continue, let me just pull this up. Shout out to Red Pill Arabic. Coach Karim, hayakallah akhi. Quick question, Sister Naima, do you speak Arabic? And I would like to have you on my channel.
قليلا فقط.
Khair, inshallah. Coach Karim,
I couldn't maintain a whole conversation like this in Arabic. My Amiya would be fighting with the Fusha, with the English coming in, so it would be a bit messy. But it will be a pleasure, inshallah.
Right. So my fear now, okay, I'll tell you what my fear is, Sister Naima. My fear with men and women, brothers and sisters, entering into a marriage where both parties mutually agree. Okay, fine. The brother says, I can't bring much in the way of finances. Days and nights will be whenever I can.
Mm.
And a sister agreeing to that is the following. Because there is so little investment on
Yes.
his part, it's so easy to cut the ties, right? And we could find ourselves in a situation where we have sisters having a revolving door of husbands. This is my fear.
100%. This is the issue.
Right.
That's the risk. That's the risk. That is the risk. And the thing is, if we're saying that Islamically these marriages are halal, yeah, that it's permissible to have a marriage where, you know, there aren't going to be children involved, where, you know, all of these things. Basically, I know there are some scholars who say misyar, forget it, and there's some who say, you know, conditions and blah blah. But if as a community we accept these types of arrangements, which is what they are arrangements, okay, between adults, hopefully, if we agree that these arrangements do have a place, that they fill a void within society, then we have to be prepared for the ramifications. Just like if we agree that divorce is something that is required sometimes, right, and that shouldn't be stigmatized, we need to be ready for the ramifications of that. Because that, you know, every one of these actions, there's a consequence. Okay, so exactly as you said, and we know this has happened with sisters before, where they marry and I get told you it's about the longevity. If you went in for the desires, you'll bounce due to desires. That's what's going to happen. If you went in with the intention to commit and build, you're not going to bounce. But that brother who's like, I don't have money, I'll pop by when I can, he's not looking to build. He's looking to bounce. He's looking to just like pull through and bounce. So she should know in her heart of hearts that, you know what, this might be cool for a while, but, you know, I shouldn't really think that it's going to last. And then she has to make a value judgment. But I mean, if it was your daughter, I know what you'd say to her.
Right.
And I know what I'd say to my daughter too.
Right.
So,
right. Okay. Now you mentioned something earlier, which was if a sister does agree to get into this arrangement, then she has to understand that she cannot go into it expecting or hoping for him to change. And this reminds me of one of the sayings that we have in this side of the internet, which is men marry women hoping they will never change, and whilst women marry men hoping he will change. You see, men marry women hoping they will never change, meaning what? Hoping that she'll stay looking the same, basically, and be nice. Stay as nice as you are and look as nice.
Yes, exactly.
Women marry men hoping he will absolutely change. He'll become more mature. He will hopefully become wealthier. He'll get the pay rise, so on and so on and so on. And I have seen it in my experience where women will initially agree. They will agree to this arrangement. But then her hopes, wishes, undercover things, they start to come out. And she starts to expect more of him, and he's looking at her like, well, this was the agreement. And it reminds me of something, actually, an advice that my father gave me, because before I got married for the second time, I married into this type of setup, which was the sister said to me, look, because I wasn't in a position to get married again, but she said to me, look, financially I'm taken care of. Nights, you have a wife, you have children with her, whatever you can give me. Okay, I just want to be married. I said, okay. Before I got married, my father warned me. He said to me, Mahdi, be careful, women change their mind. And it was prophetic advice, wallahi. It was prophetic advice, you know. I mean, how do you feel about? Are we trying to show me? No, I've pulled it up already. Yeah, how do you feel about this, Sister Naima?
I think that, you know, me saying that, you know, people need to be mature and self-aware and honest. I know that it's a big ask, because, you know, at the end of the day, like you said, women do change their minds, and especially if one is acting on emotion, right? Because emotions go up and down all the time. The difference with, you know, many of us is that we act on our emotions. We speak from our emotions. We make decisions based on our emotions. And I think we talked about this the last time we spoke, right? And I said, like, don't do that, because your emotions will change, right? So again, I'm a big believer in speaking to sisters about owning their choices, right? Because we can't make a choice as an adult to sign up for anything, right? As an adult, you decided, you did your due diligence, you did whatever you did your istikhara, and you signed up for it, right? Every choice has a consequence. Now, the consequences of your choice have turned out to be other than what you expected. You have to own that. You can't blame the person. You can't blame the situation, because you made the choice, right? So I know that it's a big ask, But it's almost like, well, you have to adult it now. You have to grow up. You made the decision to say, yeah, I'm signing up for this with my big woman self. I can deal with it. I'm grown, right? Because that's the conversation, isn't it? Like, I'm a mature woman. I know what I want. I'm good. All of this type of thing, right? You get into the relationship now, you start to get feelings, and all of a sudden the emotions are running the show. But as a woman, you have to have that conversation with yourself and say, hold on, girl, you're out of pocket right now, because yeah, you feel some kind of way, but this is what you signed up for. So either you suck it up or you bounce, because going to the person and saying to them, I'm not satisfied anymore. I need this, I need that, I need this. I'm not happy with this. I just, well, didn't you think about that beforehand? We had an agreement. Like two adults had an agreement. We made an arrangement. If you're going to change the terms of the arrangement, how do you expect me to all of a sudden be able to accommodate you? I couldn't accommodate you then, and I can't accommodate you now. What has changed? I still have a wife. I still have kids. I still broke. So what do you want from me? SubhanAllah. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm not saying that you can like
Sister Naima, spit and Allah Mubarak. No, Barakallah fik, Sister Naima. Muhammad Khalifa, Jazakallah khair for the £5 super chat. Shouldn't we address the societal issues which are the root cause to the issues you're addressing? Humans haven't changed, society has. I think what the brother is referring to is the fact that polygyny, or we should say monogamy, is idealized, in particularly in the West, and even now in the East for that matter, all over the world, Middle East, Far East, doesn't matter where you go, and polygyny is frowned upon, and you can see this in our fairy tales, in our children's movies, and so on. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, Sister Naima. Yes, I think that's had somewhat of an impact, but let me tell you something. Bring me the most left-leaning, anti-polygynist, feminist Muslim sister on this planet, yeah? And I say to her, will you be second wife to Khabib? How many of them are going to say no? Khabib Nurmagomedov? Right, there we go. See that? Yeah, do you understand? It's going to be a long queue for Khabib. So what's my point? My point is this.
Yeah, okay, can I just say, though, that, okay, wait a minute. They'll say yes based on desires. Potentially, if he's their cup of tea, they'll say yes based on desires. But unfortunately, as I said, how many of them will last due to desires? Being a second wife isn't.
Not
they'll be in there. Enjoy.
He's more than that. He's got social status. Not only is he very successful, not only is he very wealthy, but he has very high visibility, social status. Like he dots the I's and crosses the T's for the high value man, ultra high value man for that matter. That's why I say that. And it actually comes down to this, shaking your head. It comes down to this comment here. I'm going to put it up by Musa. And he said, Salaam alaikum. I just wanted to ask both of you, what do you think of Rollo Tomasi saying women would rather share a high value masculine alpha than share than be faithful to a beta male? What do you think about this, Sister Naima?
Oh, Rollo. Okay, let's look at traditional polygyny. How does it work? The more money you have, the more wives you can afford. The more children you can have, the more wealth you can produce, the longer your legacy and the bigger your lineage. That's the traditional model, right? So, of course, the men with the most power, most wealth will be able to have the most women because they can afford to look after the most women. Obviously, we can see in the society that we live in today that, women want the alpha, if you like, okay? And they will be with an alpha who is unfaithful. They will share him in that respect, okay? Another way of looking at that is maybe a woman who's married to one of these so-called high-value men, which I have an issue with that phrase. But anyway.
What's your issue with that phrase? Tell me.
Let's circle back to it. I just want to make sure I don't lose this point. So you're married to a so-called high-value man. You're a basketballer's wife. You're a politician's wife. Okay, you're a billionaire's wife, whatever the case may be. And those women will probably tolerate indiscretions at a higher rate than women who are married to the average man. Right.
Correct.
You know what I'm saying? So in that respect, yeah, okay. Potentially in our Muslim community, women would like to be maybe the second, third, or fourth wife of a brother who is considered high value in our community, right? The celebrity sheikh, the big da'i, the guy who owns, I don't know, one of the big Muslim brands, okay? What's his name? Akon, okay? These types of people. Fair enough. Yeah. So in that respect, probably yes. Yeah. yeah, so I guess maybe I'm agreeing with Rolo Tomasi on this one. Maybe.
I mean, look.
But I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's like so far from our reality. You look at
I'll tell you. I'll
the
tell you why. I'll tell you why I believe Rollo is completely on point with this.
Mm.
Men have civilized the world to a point today, ironically, where women don't actually need men. Now, I'm speaking about the developed world. I'm not talking about
yeah, of
certain
course.
poor regions of the world. I'm talking about the developed world. Women actually don't need men today. She needs men as a collective to
Yeah.
continue operating the thing, keep the world running.
Yeah.
I'm talking about, when I say that, I'm talking, ladies, about who cleans the sewers, who makes sure you've got water running in your tap, who takes your garbage every week, who puts concrete on the floor so that you can walk on a nice clean pavement and drive on a smooth road. Men take care of all of those things that are essentially responsible for life, right? But women today don't actually need any single man to
survive.
survive,
Yeah.
which means they have the luxury of being able to be more picky, more choosy. And because they have that luxury, she says to herself, well, you know what? I'm not going to die if I don't get married. So, and it goes back to what I said before, which is he who is willing to commit suicide has the initiative. And many women would rather commit marriage suicide than settle, in her
Which
mind.
we need to talk about that word as well.
Right. Which means we have a situation where all of the high value men have all of the options because all the women want that type of guy or nothing.
Yeah.
I want the best, or I don't want anything.
Mm.
Sunk cost fallacy. You see, if I can't have exactly what I want, I'll have nothing at all. Even though having this one here, which is fine, he's not quite up there with that brother, but he's still better than nothing. But sunk cost fallacy, quirk of human nature, should rather have nothing, which puts the ball in the court completely and entirely of the top men. But then we have the great majority of men, as we can see today, who are struggling to find a wife.
Yeah.
So what do we do? And how do we tell sisters? I mean, you can't. I mean, how does one go about telling a sister that this is ridiculous and you should get married rather than stay single? How does one even go about addressing that?
Yeah, I'll tell you what I think. I think that the onus is actually on parents and on mothers in particular. And the older women in the community, we have started talking about this. And it's time for us to start talking about this to the younger sisters because I've had this since our conversation. I've had so many conversations, discussions with sisters in my age group. Those of us who've been married 10, 15, 20, some of them 30 years, and they can see what's happening. They can see how people's definition of marriage has changed. People's expectations of marriage have completely warped away from out of reality, right? And people are making decisions based on these fairy tale ideas that they've taken from the society around them. So I really believe that firstly, parents need to wake up, because as parents, we are responsible for setting our children's paths. They will walk on the path that they choose, but we set them on a path, right? So, for example, you see that generation of parents that told their daughters to forget about. In fact, this is a conversation that's happened a lot in the African American community in the US, right? Where many women, 30s, 40s, trying to find a husband, college educated, working, money, house, car, beautiful, everything, right? But they can't find a husband. And many of them were saying and have been saying, when we were growing up, our mothers and our fathers were like, concentrate on your studies, get a career, get independent, make sure you don't have to rely on anyone, us or a man. And they that was the path that they set them on, you see. So for them now to get to the end of that road and realize, oh, there's not a husband waiting for me at the end of that, but I still wanted that. They're looking back on their parents and saying, like, how come no one said anything to us? How come they literally said marriage can wait? My mom said that to me. She got married at 27, which was very rare. This is in the 70s, very, very rare. South African woman marrying at 27. She said to me, don't you dare think about getting married until you're 30. That's my mom saying this to me, okay?
Wow.
So the fact that I got married at 22, that was a disappointment to her, okay? She was not happy. She didn't want that. So as parents, yes, we want our children to succeed, academically. We want them to achieve their potential. But wallahi, I'm telling you, the more we tell our girls, I sometimes take clips from an Instagram page called the Women of Impact. And I don't know whether you're familiar with it.
I've seen
Tom
that,
Villiers and his
Lisa
wife,
Villiers.
Lisa Villiers. Exactly. Now, it's so ironic to me because Tom and Lisa, if you know anything about them and their story, they are like or they call Batty and Bench. Yeah, they are like this. Okay, and they've been married since Lisa was very young, right? And they're always talking about relationships and how to make it work, and you have to stick it out, and you have to this and all of this stuff, right? That Women of Impact is Lisa's page, and almost every post is a boss girl post, is a if you don't contribute to my piece, I don't need you post, is a some really shocking things on that page that are basically pushing this whole women power, girl boss mentality. Forget family, forget children, the whole feminist third wave narrative, right? Our girls are loving those pages. They are liking those posts. They are taking in those messages that getting married is for losers. Having children, like, why would you want to do that? You're going to be more than a mother. You're going to achieve your full potential. You're going to be this. You're going to be that. You're going to be this.
Give me strength, honestly.
What do you expect? What do you expect?
Are you that mentally enslaved and intellectually subservient and intellectually molested and ideologically molested?
No, but this is what
fascinates me about that Lisa Bilyeu is that she didn't want to have children. And the way I see it is not she doesn't want to have children, and I'm spitballing here, but I'm gonna say it anyway. She doesn't want to have his children. Do you know who Jenny May is? In the celebrity world?
Yeah.
You saw Jenny May. She was with that guy for 10 years, and she was like the whole time, I don't want to have kids. I don't want to have kids. Yeah. She marries this Giga Chad that I think is an actor. I don't know what he is, right?
Isn't he a rapper?
I don't know what he is. He's something. Anyway, 6 months later, she's knocked up. And I was watching her video the other day of how she had this epiphany and realization of why she. Oh, please. You didn't want his seed, the other guy, Miskin. But this guy, yes, I want to continue his legacy. And I wonder if Lisa Bilyeu, it's not that she doesn't want kids, she doesn't want his kids. I'm spitballing. Who knows?
That's your spitball. My spitball would be that for whatever reason, not wanting kids or not being able to have them, I think that her da'wah is encouraging more women to be like her. Right. But aside from the marriage thing, because, the page is really, I mean, for me, I was showing it to Fatima Barakatullah, we were talking about it. And I said, it's interesting. This whole third wave languaging, while it sounds like it makes so much sense, it's so destructive because it puts the woman or the individual at the center of the world. Everything is about me. Everything is how I feel, my peace, my space, secure my bag, make sure that my future is X, Y, Z. Everything is about you and how you feel and whether it's working for you, is it serving you? And the thing is, on a psychological level, when somebody says, I choose my peace over you, whoever you are, it sounds plausible, right? But Mahdi, is there any human being in the world that will never disrupt your peace, no matter how beloved they are to you?
Of course not.
What an unrealistic standard.
I am the only human on this planet who doesn't disturb anyone's peace. Isn't that right, wife? Isn't that right, wife? She can hear me. Allahu Akbar.
She will be there in the comments saying, I co-signed this. But can you see how we're building this reality, right? This fake reality that the world can be exactly as you want it, and you can have it your way, any which way you want, and you'll never pay a price, and there'll never be consequences, and everything you can literally have it like something from Burger King. And I was talking with my dad about it today, and he said, you know what, these people have lost the sense of humanity because they don't realize that a human being is a human being because of other human beings. We are part of a whole. You cannot live an individualistic lifestyle and see families survive. You can't be individualistic and keep a community together. You can't be individualistic and a society still be okay. Because the whole point,
on that note, I mean, America is a dying nation, by the way. I think I mentioned this yesterday in yesterday's podcast. America is a dying nation. In order for a population to continue to grow in size, each household needs to have a minimum of 2.4 children per household. In America right now, there is an average of 1.7 children per household. They are a dying nation. And you can make a strong argument that much of the reason as to why this is happening is this narrative here. Go get your bag, girl. Don't worry about, do you understand?
It really is. And you know, the whole push to having kids, this is a trend with millennial, right, who are basically saying, you know what, I've seen what my mom went through. I saw what my aunts went through. I don't want that for myself. I want to travel the world instead. It's like, girl, you are plumb crazy. Yeah, because you really think that your place in this world is merely to fulfill your desires. That's what you think.
Here, let me bring
The
this
whole
comment
world
up
is
here.
there.
Look, this
The whole
narrative
world
right
is
here.
there.
Look at this now. This is from a sister. Not being married is not the end of the world. As women, we don't pass on our seed anyways. This is exactly what I'm talking about. He who is willing to commit suicide, marriage suicide, has the initiative. This is not uncommon. I am telling you. Yani, men are more desirous of marriage simply because as Muslims, that is the only way we can fulfill our urges. This is why I use the word desire. Go on, shoot.
So are we saying that the biological clock is not a thing? Are we saying that women do not desire to bear children and to raise the next generation?
No,
and
it is. It is a thing, but this is my point.
Because this, go on.
Yeah, my point.
Okay,
my
okay,
point is
fine.
is because women do want to have kids, especially when she gets to that late 20s, early 30s, if she hasn't already had them, you know, baby fever or whatever they call it. But she doesn't want to settle. So if she has to choose between having no kids but not settling, or having kids but settling, from what I can see, from my vantage point, is that a lot of the time she'd rather say, you know what, fine, I won't have kids, but I'll be damned if I settle.
Right. Let's talk about this settling word. Please, let's talk about this settling word for a minute. Okay. Firstly, this notion of settling, I believe it's a social construct. Okay. It's a word that has been given a particular meaning. Okay. Now, if we accept the premise that none of us are perfect, right? Then we must also accept the premise that when somebody chooses to join their lives with us, they are going to compromise on certain things. Okay. Now, a man will compromise in order to marry a woman. And similarly, it is common sense that a woman will make some compromises to marry a man, because no one is perfect, because there is no such thing as the perfect man, and there is no such thing as the perfect woman, right? So this is the case. This whole notion of settling, the basis of that idea is that you are at a particular level and you deserve somebody of that level or higher, right? That's where it comes from. And again, it goes back to how you view yourself in relation to how others view you, how you value yourself in relation to how others value you. No one is arguing with your own valuation of yourself. That's up to you. You like certain things about yourself, Mahdi. Certain things about your character that you're like, you know, alhamdulillah, I'm pleased that I'm like this. I'm glad I'm able to do that. I've got these skills, those skills, these ones. Alhamdulillah, like that's who I am. Yeah, I like that about myself. If we ask your wife and we say to her, what does she value about you?
She will agree.
No. She will mention other things, Mahdi. She's not going to talk about those things. You better send her the list then.
What I tell her to say.
Point is, she's going to list other things about you, things that she values about you, right? They may have nothing to do with the things you're so proud of, right? But she values you because of that. Similarly, as a woman, and guys, I'm going to keep it real here, yeah? For me, I've had people say to me back in the day, yeah, you know, you should have a brother who is known in the community, mashallah, who's done like great work like you've done, is famous like you, he's got money, he's got a big name, he's got social media following and everything, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what they value about me, right? That's what they value about me. So in their mind, you deserve someone like that. But at the end of the day,
Sister Naima, could you marry again? I don't know if you want to get married again, but could you marry a brother who's a simple brother? Yani he doesn't have social status. He has a simple, regular job, but he's a nice brother. He's a good brother, good Allah-fearing brother. Could you marry someone like
alhamdulillah.
that?
Mahdi, I'm spoken for, so I never talk on this topic. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
But let's talk about this for a minute, because that man who values me, do you think he values the fact that I'm some kind of celebrity, or that I've got how many thousand followers on Instagram, or the fact that I've written books?
No.
It's great. It's cool. It's nice. It's, mashallah, like, bragging rights, maybe, but that's not what he values about me. So similarly, for every sister out there, sis, value yourself as you wish, but understand that the qualities that make you desirable to a husband may not be the things you value about yourself. So you may see you got a big job, got a good income and all these kind of things, and you may feel that I am valuable because of these things, and therefore I should have a man on that level. You may find that the man who meets you and talks to you, right, he sees qualities in you that he doesn't vibe with. He doesn't rock with that. Maybe it's your manners. Maybe it's your attitude. Maybe it's your sense of entitlement. Maybe it's your lack of gratitude. Maybe it's your way of looking down your nose at him. And he says, I deserve better than you.
Ouch.
I deserve a wife who's going to show me some respect.
Ouch.
Because guess what? I'm not a bad person. I'm not a lowlife. I'm a good person. I have dignity. I have integrity. I'm about myself. You think that because you've got a particular type of job or particular thing that makes you better than me? So what does that say about you? So this is what I'm saying, is that this whole thing of settling puts people on a pedestal. And from that place, they're looking down on people using criteria that don't even apply, right? So really, people need to be clear on what it is that they want. And at the end of the day, none of us are talking from a place of, kind of smugness because we're married, or because, well, alhamdulillah, like we found a person or whatever. No one's doing that. But what I want to do is really just say to sisters, look, it's not a personal attack. When we talk about these things and we mention facts and we mention figures and we talk about the reality on the ground, please don't take it personally. It's not a diss. It's not a slight. It's just facts. And for many of us, the sooner we can face facts, the sooner we can start making decisions based on those facts and making decisions based on reality rather than fairy tale.
SubhanAllah. This has been very productive, Sister Naima. I mean, like I said, I inherently don't like some of these solutions, but I do recognize that the protection of the private parts is the priority, not what I like or dislike, And if it means that we can mitigate zina, promiscuous sexual intercourse, so be it. But you probably know there are, I'm not going to name, but there are certain cliques in the Muslim community. I know of them here in the UK, where the sisters in these certain Muslim cliques, sects, if you want to call it that, well, that's what it is, I suppose. They have a reputation. And one sister, she's been through the whole masjid, and they'll come back and just say to you, it's halal, what's the problem? Wow. And this is what I don't like. Do you understand?
No,
and
for those play that game.
For those of you who know I'm talking about, you know who I'm talking about. You know where I'm talking about, which part of the UK I'm talking about. And they have this reputation. I find that to be that makes me sick to my stomach. I don't know what to make of that, because they are right when they say, well, okay, well, it was in halal. What's the problem? I don't know what to make of that.
Okay, but again, this is one of those things, isn't it, where it's halal, but there are now, how do you mitigate the damage, right? How do you mitigate that? I remember there was a conversation based on one of Kevin Samuel's, I think he was talking about body counts, right? And one of the commentators was saying, when women in a particular, women who are out there in the world, right, who have a lot of sexual experience, obviously have a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? They have a lot of references. Let's put it that way, okay? A lot of references. Yeah. So what he was noticing was that when women who have been out in the world are looking for a man to kind of pair up with, they bring a lot of that energy to that process. So it's very much about desires. It's very much about how they get the tingles or the feels or how he's going to make them feel, right? Very, very, very sexualized. And this is a problem, because, whether you married 5-10 times in halala, right, and had those partners, or whether you committed zina, obviously in the eyes of Allah, it's not the same. Right. In the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's not the same. And on Yawm al-Qiyamah, it's not going to be weighed the same in any shape, size, or form. However, the physical and emotional and sexual results of that behavior, you will still experience them, whether you were married you had nikah with the person or not, right? So you're going to have that referencing. You're going to have, what they call those soul ties. I don't know whether Islamically we believe in that, but this is a sacred thing. This is something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has surrounded, with what? With hardship. You can't just get that thing. It's something that is supposed to be kept sacred. It's supposed to be kept within the sanctity of a marriage, right? So if that's something that's been kind of recycled and done here, there, we have cheapened it somehow, right?
Yes.
And how then do you commit to one person and say, I will be satisfied with this for the rest of my life? Psychologically, you set yourself up there.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Good luck to those
But
sisters.
again, see, Mahdi, we shouldn't bring an extreme example of a situation
I know. I know. It's just like I said, my fear is if taking this, it has to be. Look, the way I see it is like this: do you want that to be your daughter? You want your daughter to be that sister? Okay, fine. You don't want her to be that sister, and that might sound like I'm having cognitive dissonance here. Actually, let me just clarify, because I mentioned before that I would rather have concubines than commit to multiple women. Yes, this is the truth. Well, maybe it is dissonance. I don't know. Maybe it is. But
it works for you, but maybe on the other side, on receiving end, you would like that to be your daughter. So
you know what? It's a double standard. Hell yeah, it's a double standard.
It is a double standard. That's a certifiable double standard. But can I just say this as well with regards to the daughters? Okay, our daughters, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, our daughters are pure. Our daughters are pure. May Allah preserve them. They've been raised on Islam. They've been raised to be chaste. They've been raised to respect themselves. They've been raised to be entrusted to a man who's going to look after them, right? And who is going to take care of this amana. So let's take our daughters out of the equation.
Okay.
Do we feel the same if it's a woman who's been married before, who's been married a couple of times, okay? Or who, has children, she's more experienced in life. Do we still feel the same level of concern or anxiety over a woman like that making that type of decision as we would with a young girl being given that offer? Because if someone came to your daughter with that offer, you would slap him and give him the gazma and that's it.
Yeah, let me just answer that frankly. No.
Sure.
No, I don't. No, if you've been married a few times in the past, no, I don't have that same level of concern.
Okay, cool. All right.
And that's the way it should be. I mean, we cannot compare a woman she's had a bite of the apple, maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe 4, maybe 5, only Allah knows, to a woman who has never had a bite of the apple. The one who's never had a bite at the apple, she needs a bit more, mollycoddling, if you like, and helping along the way to get her the best possible prospect that we can find for her. She
shouldn't be given away for a cheap price. If we dare to use price and things like that, but she's valuable.
You have to be careful with that, because that by extension insinuates that the women who do agree to that this arrangement are being given away for a cheap price. So we have to. All right,
check this out. No, let's say this. I remember this is a conversation KS has a lot, where a woman will come on the show. She's had 2, 3 children, baby daddy situation, not marriage, baby daddies. Now she wants to find a husband, and blah blah blah. And he always asks them that question, says, what makes you think that you deserve, because of course they're all calling about the so-called high value man, right? What makes you think that you deserve this high value man? That's the thing. And they'll say, oh, I have that, I did this, and da-da. He'll say, you already gave the most precious thing that a woman can give to a man. You gave it to Pookie and Ray Ray already, right? And they didn't have to pay. They didn't have to buy you a house. They didn't have to be earning 6 figures. They didn't have any of those, demands that you're making now, but you already gave away to 3 men, right? And furthermore, you don't want to have any more kids, or you're thinking maybe 1 if I have to. So what's in it? You know what I'm saying? So it's not about.
But with that example, I agree with Kevin. They would be cheaper, and let me tell you why. Because they had that in zina, and therein is the fundamental difference. You see, if a woman has been married. Although she's less desirable to the marriage market, still it was in halala. You see, and we can't compare a zani or a zania with a chaste woman. Even if she's had 3 ex-husbands, she's still a chaste woman. And it was in halal. Do you understand?
I think the point that I'm making is that the one who's coming into it for the first time with her youth and her innocence and her lack of experience, you will never be that woman again. That's the truth. You will never be that untouched, innocent, ready to be, you know, open to the delights of the world, you won't be her again, right? You will be a grown woman with responsibilities, having gone through experiences. We already talked before about if you do have children, right, and you do marry somebody, he's not going to be the center of your world. He can't be the center of your world because there are children involved and they need you as well, right? Again, even if you take away the physical aspect, what you're getting from somebody who is young and single, never been married, and you're getting what you're getting from her in terms of her attention and her focus and her energy, you can't compare that to, you know, someone like me, someone in my age group. It's not the same. You know, maybe later after the kids are grown, now you can say, okay, now we're
your self-awareness is extremely refreshing, I have to say, Sister Naima. And I think I'm gonna postulate here. Let me use some posh words. Let me put on the Muhammad hijab flex and pull out the English dictionary. I think you are ahead of the curve with the majority of Muslim sisters, and because you're ahead of the curve, you are going to be spearheading this enlightenment, shall we call it, or this awareness, and that your role is going to be very important in helping sisters to become more self-aware. You're already well established, well known in the community. You already have a strong following, and I think, Yani, your role is going to be very important moving forward in helping sisters simply become more self-aware. It's refreshing, I have to say. I mean, it's refreshing, you know. And you know, I thank you for this. I thank you, Yani, because what you're doing is very hard. I know this because I experienced massive backlash when I first started coming out on social media, huge. But I'm a man.
That's because you were rude, Malish. You were rude.
I'm rude as well. I'm rude as well. But I'm a man, and honestly, I'm not going to say it doesn't affect me at all. In the beginning, it did a little bit, but I never showed it. I'll just go to sleep on it and whatever. I'd write out my thoughts and just deal with it internally. But especially for a woman to go through, and I'm not patronizing you, but I am saying women are more conflict averse than men. Now your delivery is different to mine, and hopefully you know you get the better out of your audience than I do. But still, it's difficult. What you're doing is not easy because you're going against the status quo. And I thank you, Yani, for taking on the burden of that responsibility of helping sisters to simply become more self-aware. Why? Because the bottom line is this: we want our brothers and sisters to get married, man. I don't want to have to sit here and I encourage men to become the best versions of themselves, you know, be that high value man, all the rest of it. But it should not be a prerequisite to be a top 10% man in order to get married. This is nonsense. That means that only you have to become the top 10% in order to get a wife. What? Now we're writing off the other 90%. And by the way, not all men are cut out for to become that top tier man.
And the thing is that, if I just may add this here, is that, you know, people, again, it's the fairy tale, isn't it? It's the expectations that we have. As I said to you, I've started having these conversations with sisters and brothers, having honest, open conversations about what marriage really is, right? Because the media is not telling us. Social media is not showing us. Hollywood does definitely not show us what marriage is really about, what it's for, and how it works and how you can make it work. So we're having these conversations, right? And one of the things that keeps coming up again and again is this issue of expectation. The higher your expectations, the more likely you are to be disappointed, because the gap, the disappointment and the frustration is found where? In the gap between reality and your expectation. If we, and I said this, parents and mothers and the older sisters in the community, the sisters who have more wisdom, it's on us to start talking to the younger sisters. And we alhamdulillah, we have started talking, and we're talking to each other, and we are having these conversations openly amongst sisters, right? Because that's really important. Sisters are the ones who need to hear this. They may not like it at first. It may feel very uncomfortable, but the fact is, we know what we're talking about. You guys don't know anything because you're just starting out in this thing, and you have swallowed all the hype, from the media. Maybe your parents never told you anything. Okay, maybe your Islamic knowledge is not that strong, but we know because we've been here, we've been through it, we've seen it happening, we've seen our friends putting in the work to make marriages last. We know what makes a marriage work and what breaks a marriage as women, as Muslim women. And you know what? SubhanAllah. This evening, I recorded a podcast with Maryam Lemu and her husband, Saeed Takuma. They've been married 30 years. 30 years this year, mashallah, tabarakallah. First 6 years of their marriage, hell.
Really?
It was absolutely awful. They talk about it on the podcast, inshallah. You guys have to go and subscribe to my channel so you can watch these videos. But point is that when they went in, her husband had made a decision. He had chosen her for a reason, and they were not going to get a divorce. Like, he was like,
Right.
It's not happening. She asked for a divorce in the first week. They had an argument. She had never seen adults, parent, like, husband and wife having an argument before. She was like, this is not it. Give me a divorce. And he had to kind of coach her through it. It took a long time. But the point is, long story short, the expectation that marriage is going to be a Hollywood romance or a Bollywood romance, that he's going to complete you in every way, that he's going to be your best friend, that he's going to be all the things you dreamed about, that is the problem, right? That we're facing right now, because we are in love with a fantasy. We are in love with a fantasy, and we're swiping on the apps looking for the embodiment of that fantasy, when that fantasy is not even real.
I want to talk about these apps real quick before we finish off, and that is from another quirk of human nature. And you can find all of this. I've actually done a podcast on this on Dan Ariely's book, Predictably Irrational, and that is, the more options you offer a human being, the less likely they are to choose any one of those options. There's actually a great quote by Henry Ford, and he said, "My customers can have their cars in any color they want, so long as it's black."
As long as it's black, yeah.
Right. So long as it's black. And these apps, they present this conundrum, which is, okay, we've got all of these options. Sounds great, right? No, it's actually awful. I don't care if they're even if you have 100 great options to choose from, that's still bad, because how do you whittle down and choose just one and just run with it, And so I guess the final question I would have to pose to you is, sisters in particular, when they are in their youth, and the majority of the brothers and sisters I deal with are in that age demographic, 18 to 25 for the most part, probably because of my age. If you were to speak to these younger sisters who do have a lot of options, what would you say to them, knowing this quirk of human nature, that the more options you have, the less likely you are to choose any one of them, whilst at the same time, the clock is ticking? What do we do about that?
Bismillah. I think I would tell them what I tell my daughters. Even my daughter's turning 13 and the other one's 9, and my son's the 18-year-old and the 15-year-old. And I tell them all the same thing. You want to get married, you know that. Prepare in your head to be a wife or a husband, gain the skills, find somebody that you can build with. That's what I say. Find someone you can build with. You're not the finished article. He won't be the finished article. But can you get along? Do you have the same vision? Are you ready to work together? And are you committed? Find that person, lock it in, and done. Because once you're married, all the other options don't matter. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're not thinking about, oh, but I could have this one. I could have gone that way. Oh, I could have married this. Once you commit to that person, you're locked in, and you're now working on your marriage. You don't care about anything else or anybody else, hopefully, right? So even all the beautiful girls, you're like, I don't care about them. I've got my wife. Like, I've got the bird in the hand is worth what?
Yeah,
two in the bush.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
Is worth more than two in the bush. Exactly, right? So that's really what I would say to them, is like, if this, firstly, understand what marriage is for. And this is a big thing. Sorry, I know we're going, long, but I think it's worth mentioning. I believe that our society has shown us and told us a lot of stories about relationships, right? About relationships developing between a man and a woman, romance, falling in love, the relationship, Everyone's seen it. Everyone's heard it. We know how it operates. We think we know how it operates. But what our society has not done is teach us anything about marriage. Because having a relationship and having a marriage are not the same thing. You could have a relationship with a girl in Jahiliyyah, with a guy in Jahiliyyah, and you guys, you're on the same page. You're like twin flames. You kick it. You're cool. You're this, you're that, you're that. But you're Muslim and he's not. You're Muslim and she's not. So when it comes to a marriage now, you don't have what it takes to go the full mile, right? Because compatibility isn't there. She doesn't want to have kids. He doesn't want to get married. You have different ideas about kind of what married life should look like. She comes from a mashup family. All of those other issues start to become, part of the equation when you're actually looking at building a family. And that's what marriage is. Marriage is not about the feels. It's not all about the feels. So you shouldn't choose somebody just based on the feels. Because if you do, you're going to choose badly, because that's not what it's all about. And if he doesn't deliver on the feels, oh my goodness, woe betide us. Because in your head, you've got this romanticized idea of what a marriage is about. All you know is relationships. You don't know anything about marriage. You don't know anything about compromise. You don't know anything about sacrifice. You don't know about loyalty. You don't know about responsibility. You don't know about keeping your mouth shut. You don't know about forgiving. You don't know any of that stuff. What you know is date night. What you know is date night and flowers and saying I love you. You know what I'm saying? That's all you know. But the real stuff, we're not teaching it. Boys, maybe even boys or girls. But definitely we're not. That's not what society is giving us. So we have to pick up the slack. We have to have these conversations.
Jazakallah khair, barakallah. Sister Naima, where can the people find you, whether it's for coaching on writing a book, or whether it's for, you do one-on-one consultations as well, right?
Yes, I do.
Let the people know where they can find you, your YouTube, your socials. Put your plug.
So Naima B. Robert on all the channels. My YouTube channel is going under an overhaul right now. I'm recording a lot of fresh content for that. I'm very excited about that. We're going to be having conversations about marriage, we're having conversations about male-female dynamics and intimacy next year as well, inshallah, because there's too much ignorance in the community. And I want the sisters from my generation to start talking to the ones younger than us and having these conversations and allowing brothers and sisters to hear each other. With regards to what's going on for me in terms of writing, I actually am pre-selling a writing course for brothers and sisters. And this is actually a foundations of writing course. So it's how to write well, whether it's blogs, articles, essays, stories, whatever you want to use it in. I'm really excited to be doing that in December, inshallah. So it's on my Instagram, on my Facebook as well, inshallah. Follow me there. You'll see the details, inshallah.
Allahu Akbar. Excellent. Before we finish this brother just sent this in. Shukran for the £9 super chat, Akhi. As a 21 male graduate with purpose, career, and business plans, would it be better to build myself or develop together with a spouse? This opens fear of only getting married because of possessions. What would be your response to this, Sister Naima?
I know what Mahdi's response will be.
what would my response be?
Mahdi would say, build yourself up and become that high value guy so that you've got options. So he'll probably tell you, if you can, to wait until you're like at least 25 when you've got, more to kind of save for yourself. Is that correct?
I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't say
that.
Oh,
okay. Cool. All right.
You're not far off. I would say this. If you can wait, then wait. But if you can't, then get married. And if you're asking me, would I be able to wait? My answer is no. I got married at 16. Enough. I would not be able to wait. Okay. And don't worry about this fear of, I'm worried. Listen, make peace with the fact that women are looking for a man who is able to provide her with a certain level of security. Accept it. Okay, brother? Yeah. We have to look. There is a burden of performance.
Part of your calling. This is part of your role. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given it to you. It's okay. Own it.
Oh, it's a burden of performance on both parties. Women also have a burden of performance, by the way, in the marriage, right? It's different to ours, but the burden is still there. And I use the word burden specifically because it can be a burden. Like a man's desire can be quite overwhelming for a woman sometimes. This is a burden, you see? And then a man has to provide for his wife. Maybe he needs to go out and work 12-hour shifts or whatever the case may be. That's a burden, you see? Burden of make peace with it. Okay, if you fear haram, get married, brother, and as in do your best to get married. And if you can't, if you're struggling for whatever reason, then work on your purpose and then work on your understanding of women in general, relationships, intersexual relationship dynamics in general. That would be my response. If you're gonna ask me, I would not be able to wait. Hell no. I have to get married at 16, man. Forget that nonsense. Anyway, it's a different world now. Khair.
I would say if you can find somebody who likes you enough to jump in and build with you, do it, mashallah, because it is, if you can do it, then do it. That's what I definitely want my sons to do. I pray Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses them with righteous, happy spouses. But, if you can lock it in, lock it in.
Ameen. Jazakallah khair, Sister Naima. There was something else I wanted to say, but Allah has slipped my mind. But Jazakallah khair and barakallah fi. Guys, go and follow Sister Naima, her YouTube channel, all of her socials. Are you on TikTok as well, Naima?
No.
You're not on TikTok. Okay, tamam. Khair, yalla. Jazakumullah khair. Make sure you hit that like on the way out. Don't be a hater. Don't hit the dislike. Barakallahu feekum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.